As mentioned earlier, we cannot show the data like this. We need separate components. So let's create user and to-do components. First of all, I'm going to create the components folder. Inside this folder, I will create two component files. I'll say todo.js and user.js. Now let me first of all create the user component. So here I'm going to say const user will receive the props here. Now I'm going to destructure the props directly to the user element. So I'll say const user is equal to props, and then I will say return, opening the brackets. Let me have a division here. Now I will go to app.js. Let me just cut this division in fact, and let's paste it here. And now at the end, I'm just going to export the component, and let me just save this. Now let's go to app.js, and here I'm going to first of all import from the respective path. Now inside this return, I'm going to write the user component, and I'm going to pass the props user is equal to user. Let's just save this and let's see the output. Now you see that the data is getting displayed through the user component, but the problem is it is not very presentable. So let's try to apply some CSS. I will go to app.css, and at the end I will add users class. Let's give some width, height 200 pixels. Let me also give the border. I'll say 1 pixel solid blue. We need every division on the same line, so I'm going to say display inline block. Let's give some margin between every division. Inside the division, I want the text to be left aligned, and let's give some padding to the content of the division. Let's just save this. Go back to the user.js, and here I'm just going to say class name is equal to users. Let's just save this. Let me add HR here, so there will be a line after every field value, and HR here as well. Now let's just save this and check the output. Let's click on users. There you are. You see that now it looks little better, more presentable. So now we are done with the user component. Let's try to implement to-dos component as well. So inside the todo.js, I'll say const todo. Again, we'll have props. I'm going to destructure the props in todo object. And let's just have return. Now I'm not writing anything here at the moment because we need to have the state for todo. Let me just show you the JSON placeholder. And you see that we have the user ID, title, and completed. Let's take ID and title for to-do component. So these two fields we are going to refer. First of all, I'll go to app.js, and let me create const todos, comma set todos. So the state is created. I'll say use state and the array. Now inside this, I'm going to remove the console log, open the curly bracket. Then I'll say set todos and JSON. So the state todos is updated with this JSON. Now the next thing, we already have todos. Let me open another curly bracket and try to map all the values. So I'll say todos.map. And of course todo comma index, and we will have the return JSX. So now the to-do is also configured. let's import the to-do component. Now we will go to todo.js. I'll say export default to-do. Now inside this return, I'll say division. Let's assign the class name from the beginning. We will assign some CSS to this also. I'll say to-dos. Then we'll have the h3. We'll display the ID. I'll say todo.id. We'll have an HR. Again an h3 where I'm going to say title. todo.title. Let's save this and we go back to app.css. Now with todo, I will try to have some horizontal component. So I'll say width 80%. We'll keep the height 130 pixels. Border and display will keep same as previous. Margin 3 pixels. Text alignment will give left. And padding also. The left padding I want to give 5 pixels. So the text will appear with some padding. Let's just save this. So now we are done with the configuration of both the components. I click on users, then we see the users. And if you click on to-dos, then we have the to-dos as well. But they both are displayed on the same page, right? This is something we do not want, and I will discuss that in the coming lectures. But at the moment, let me just refresh it again and just click on to-dos. So we have all the to-do items, all 200 to-do items we have here. So now we are done with the users and to-dos component. I also want to mention that at the moment, the individual to-do and user is displayed with these components. And I am configuring the map method for users and to-dos inside the app.js. But you may also have a container. So in app.js, you don't actually write these methods. You may have a separate container, let's say to-dos and users, plural that is, and that we have configured separately as a container component. And those components will have to-do and user individually. At the moment, our concern is not on structuring the application, but we try to understand the basic structure. That's why I am not following. But certainly you should have a container component where you write all these map methods. Generally, we do not put it in the app.js. In the next section, we will try to implement a functionality where if you click on to-do, the user should disappear. And vice versa, when you click on users, to-do should disappear. So we'll have some conditional rendering in the next lecture.